Welcome to the show. Ballbusters episode 101. Scientific proofs of the creator. That's bound to get some people's panties in a bunch, don't you think? As usual, if you'd like to support this channel, there are PayPal and Patreon links in the info box below. Let's shift it over to Discord to my co-host, the distinguished Nathan Oakley. Are you there, sir?
I am. How's it going?
Good.
Excellent. When you said you were going to start the show with a bit of Dave McKeegan, it suddenly dawned on me that it's text. There's nothing to play out right at the beginning of the show like you might have normally.
That's correct.
How are you going to cover it? Are you going to get somebody to read it out and then we'll respond to it, or you'll comment on it, or what?
Now, I'm going to share my screen, share your screen in Discord, and then I got a little capture that I'm going to put up, and I'm going to read it, comment on it, and then let it go for everyone else to comment on it.
Perfect. I've just released a video on this, so if you want to check this out, shameless plug for my own video, there's a video out now called Dave McKeegan Unequivocally Proves Earth is Flat on Nathan Oakley 1980 channel. So go and check it out, leave a comment. Yeah. I thought that's bought enough time, has it? Probably not.
Yeah.
It's an excellent video, and you should... Go on.
I'm trying to find it. I can't find it now. Huh. Hold on a second.
That's all right. It just gives me that opportunity to plug my own video once more and say, check out Dave McKeegan Unequivocally Proves Earth is Flat, only on the Nathan Oakley 1980 YouTube channel. Be here or be sphere.
I think I got it now.
I can plug my own show again. I mean, I don't mind.
I don't need you to plug your own show again. I think I got it. Bam! How you like that?
Beautiful. Who's going to read it?
Yeah, I'll read it. This is from Dave, now known as Dave Triangles McKeegan, which is friggin' hilarious. Shout out to Brian. He made a comment here to One Deck that is quite revealing. So let's go ahead and read it. You can't use elevation angles alone to measure height on a globe. We're talking about celestial navigation here, sir. No one's measuring heights to stars or celestial bodies of the sun or the moon. Nobody. What on earth, sir? But I continue. Because you need a triangle with a flat baseline with a known length to the GP of the object in the sky. This is so non sequitur and wig snatching. I can barely read this. It's incoherent and wig snatching at the same time. So I'll leave it to you, Nathan, because you did the show on it earlier. It was great. I loved it. Over to you.
He's essentially saying he can't measure the height of the star on the globe because he needs a flat Earth elevation angle measurement. That's what he's essentially saying. You're saying it's incoherent because telling One Deck that he can't measure the height of the star, when in this instance, One Deck's talking specifically about celestial navigation. How to find your location, to get home if you're lost at sea. It's got sod all to do with travelling to stars or getting their heights. Nothing. Zero. Nada. It's not required. That's his rebuttal, making it nonsensical and incoherent. But at the same time, his excuse for his incoherent ramblings about getting heights of stars when celestial navigation has sod all to do with that, he bunks globe Earth and affirms that it can only be done on a flat Earth. Both snatching his own wig off, proving a flat Earth, debunking any measurements that can take place on a curved surface, and offering up a non sequitur for measuring heights. Quite a comment.
I can't believe he actually wrote this. This is scary, Dunning-Kruger.
We were talking about it in the pre-show. I'm sure I said this on the live show when it was first read out to me by One Deck. There's a belief on the anti-flat Earth side, or I think it's more Glober, the Glober in Dave McKeegan coming out of him because it's so green. But there's a sort of misapprehension that you'll do a bit of research as a Glober and everything that you come across will affirm, of course it's a globe, because you know it is. Then you come across something like this, celestial navigation, read 5 sentences and then go back to the flat earther who's disciplined in the art of bull foo and get you to smack your own face in.
No, that's ball-jitsu, sir.
Ball-jitsu.
Yes.
Indeed.
That's where you stop punches with your face.
This was Dave McKeegan stopping Wandek's punches with his face. That's right.
Yeah, or
no,
you
it's
could
not
call it
quite
a
correct.
confession attack. It's like confessing his error, but in his mind, it's an attack, supposedly. So he's basically gaslighting himself in the process. Yeah, I'm bringing that terminology back, even though it technically doesn't
Too
make
much credit.
sense.
No, it's Dunning-Kruger. He thinks he's well researched when he's spouted this off because he's read a couple of books of a navigation guide or something similar. He's looked it up on Wiki. Whatever he's done. At that point, he's gone, yeah, I know my stuff. This proves a globe. You don't know your stuff. You haven't got a clue. You don't understand or appreciate what you've read or what it means or how it debunked a globe or how it proved a flat earth or how it had nothing to do with the height of the stars. He didn't know any of that. But it seems like he's read something about celestial navigation. He's talking about GPs. He's talking about 90s. He's talking about baselines. He's talking about sextant angle measurements. So he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. Pure Dunning-Kruger.
Go ahead, Adam.
There's two things. Well, first of all, ball-jitsu is the art of blocking one's opponent's blows with your face. Second, this little quote, it reminds me of like kind of questions you get in exams where you've got a because in the middle and you've got two statements. You have to say whether the first one's false, the first one's or the second, or the first one's true or false, second bit's true or false, and whether or not the first or second is the correct explanation of the other. I want to go through it with that kind of thing in mind. You can't use elevation angles on alone to measure height on a globe. Well, I kind of want to say that's true. First of all,
it is, but it's in a vacuum. It is, but not in the context of the not in celestial navigation.
Well, he's not mentioned celestial navigation there. He says you can't use elevation angles alone to measure height on a globe.
But he's going to in the next statement, connecting the two. Let's stop rumpusing me.
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
so
it's quite fun to talk to you.
It is. It is. I'm
okay,
feeling
it was only
fun.
me talking in the first place.
I'm feeling it fun. You can't take the first statement without the second in context.
Right. So, kind of want to say that's true, but because of the next bit,
because so 1 second. You see the word after the comma? Because. See, that connects the first statement to the second.
That was the point of me summarizing it initially as those university questions. Because you need a triangle with a flat baseline with a known length to the GP of the object in the sky. Kind of agree with that. But it's not a known length. It's a calculated length based on the elevation angle. So I kind of think that's false. So I've gone false, false. And also the first point is not a correct explanation of the second.
Yes. Thank you. We finally got there.
It is a false statement. It's because he says known. So at that point, it's not known. The whole point of doing it is so you can minus it from a 90 times it by 60 after measuring the angle, right? What do you mean known? Distance along a flat baseline proving a flat Earth.
Exactly.
It's just comical.
The point of me putting it in that convoluted way was just to show what a cluster screw this paragraph is. Yeah, it's got no relevance. There's points you could think, oh, is he talking about plain sailing in the first statement? But even then, you do need extra information. I think as you first started it off, the accusation, he's just done a quick Google search to acquire his knowledge. And this statement to me kind of demonstrates that. That's why I put it in that vernacular.
Yes, I could see where you could say if you took the first statement on its own in a vacuum, you can't use elevation angles alone. No, you can't use elevation angles to measure height on a globe. That is a true statement. And goodbye, globetard. I understand what you're saying there, but when he connects it with the because, with the rest, you got to take it whole in context, and you got it right in the end. That it's just incoherent, essentially.
The analogy I was using, like if you do like a degree question, you'd say like, I don't know, furosemide can be used to not only control blood pressure but also edema, because
Right.
the way in which it reduces blood pressure is to use renal reduction of blood volume.
Yeah.
To extract water. So that's a correct, true sort of thing. And that's what I'm saying. You use those things to figure out people's competence. So that's why I said it read like that. But for somebody to not set it as a question for me to analyse, but set it as a statement with false, and that's not a correct explanation, the other kind of shows the level of comprehension you're at.
Yes, sir. That's why we
It
said he
does.
snatched his own wig off.
It shows his level of comprehension being very poor. So maybe let Dave McKeegan, that would be Dave Triangles McKeegan, know that we're assessing his competency level. And I feel it's appropriate that Adam give our conclusions in that regard.
Well, first thing is, I think we should drop the Dave. Just call him Triangles McKeegan now, because otherwise it's too long.
I'm down with that. Triangles McKeegan. Yep, that's even better ring than Dave Triangles McKeegan, originally from Brian's Logic. Just Triangles McKeegan. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And I think, to be fair, that's fair enough analysis. You've not mentioned celestial navigation. You've not referenced it, but I assume that's what you think you're talking about, as that's what it was. But with that in mind, you need to go and learn about it, mate, before you comment on it, making false, and not a correct explanation of the previous statements, because it's just only worthy of ridicule. So, good luck, Triangles.
So, in conclusion, Dave Triangles McKeegan, you're thick, demonstrably stupid, and demonstrably Dunning-Kruger, and demonstrably completely out of your depth in this subject.
So give him millions of subscribers, of course.
Again, Arwin?
So he gets millions of subscribers, of course.
Of course. Give him millions of views.
Or views, whatever.
Is that it?
Quiet.
Go ahead.
The only thing I would add on to the end was that we often get comments that are discussed from whoever, Simon Dan, Soundly, whoever it is that's left a comment, and it will get cursory discussion to warm up the panel in a pre-show. Typically, that happens. Right? I'm sure you're all aware. Someone will say, "Oh, someone said this," and then we'll discuss it in passing and then move on. Typically, we don't labour the comment to this degree. Now, number one, it is worthy of discussion in this form because of the levels of stupidity that Triangles McKeegan has demonstrated. But it might not have got to this level had he have just done what I asked for, which is when you respond, put a link to my video. That's all I asked. Like I linked to his video. That's why people were telling him. That's why he knew that Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, because I algorithmically shared the love with him. People went to his video to prop up his views that he's already getting algorithmically sent to him anyway, instead of sent to me. But he didn't. And now you're called Triangles, McKeegan, because you're thick as... Let's not ruin the non-swearing quorum of the show. Very stupid. Okay, Dave? Triangles?
Isn't thick as a brick? Can't you say thick as a brick? Because that's, I think that's the name of
Quite
an
like
album from one of your English compadres.
Thick as a brick,
Thick, yeah.
Triangles, McKeegan? Yeah, it's all got the same ring.
Dun, 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 dun. In the
Yeah,
shuffling triangles. Dun, 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 dun.
That's the problem, algorithmically. If you're propped up with consensus and people around you are generally more stupid than you are, they're not going to point out when you do something like this. In fact, because you're supporting their cause and affirming their biases, they're going to cheer and shout and jeer for you when you do it. They're going to go, hooray. Yeah, Dave McKeegan saving our ball paradigm again. And the problem is, you then get an inflated self-importance, an idea that you're more intelligent than you actually are. Yeah? Now, I remember that feeling back in 2015, stumbling into this subject and then trying to affirm my own biases of flat Earth, and then coming across erectile dysfunction channel. Going, oh my God, I am so far out of my depth. Now, me, this was a niche subject in 2015 or 2014 or wherever it was. It's a long time ago. And it's taken a long time to progress to the stage where I can just turn around on a live stream and call someone like Triangles McKeegan a complete idiot. Yeah? Based on his total lack of understanding of celestial navigation and flat Earth proofs that are flat baselines and 90 degrees below GPs. Now, he will go out and make a video about this. Probably put his foot in it more. Because in his overinflated self-worth, he's got consensus behind him, therefore he's right. And I can see it. He's that type of character. He'll make a response and put his foot in it even further. They all do it.
Hi, Nathan.
Hello, whoever that is.
I like your content.
Oh, thank you. You've got to compliment the main host first.
Quantum.
Hello.
Oh, he meant me. He meant me. David Dora.
Oh.
Yes.
Wait. The main host is Adam.
Thank you very much. We're going to get on very well.
I heard that
Okay.
according to Nathan at the end of his voice. That was a question.
Sounded like a statement to me.
Are you guys UK?
UK, and me and Adam are. We're just very proud, both of us, that we've coronated our king.
Did you watch any of it, Nathan? I've
Hey, you having a laugh? Yeah, I was overclocking RAM.
Well, the only bit I checked for, I've got to be honest, I did. I went to see if there was a big lumpy stone under the throne. But that's all I've done.
My wife watched it,
On the
and
phone.
I kept asking her, and then lost interest as he held the globe with the cross on it. And she was like, "No, why are you asking?" I'm like, "Well, because he's going to become the head of the church, and that symbolic globe with the cross on it is what represents that." And her reply to me, this is the extent of my current affairs and knowledge, right? What my wife told me about it. She's like, "Well, the general consensus is that that particular aspect of the coronation is a bit of a sham because they're divorcees. So, therefore, him becoming king and his wife becoming queen, or Camilla Parker Bowles now becoming queen, is a bit of a sham when it comes to their representation of the church."
What
Obviously,
a sack of shit. Henry VIII, what was the whole point in getting rid of the Catholics, right? For then 600 years of British monarchy, yeah? Because so Henry VIII could get a divorce, get rid of these rules. Those rules have gone in the British church. So I just think that of all the things, all the moral corruption that family has, that's the least thing to pick on, I think. Give her a crown, the old hag. Sorry.
I don't necessarily buy
Sorry.
into the sentiment of the news itself, Adam. I just find it's interesting that that's what's being disseminated to the general public, to the point where my wife is happy to parrot it off to me, which makes me think, oh, there's a certain air of disdain that's being woven into the coronation because of the sham that is him heading up the church. For whatever reason they want to spin it in that way. Now, I appreciate what you've just said, and I agree. Yeah, it's a bit of a nonsense, but that is the word on the grapevine for the great unwashed of Britain at the moment, from what I appreciate. And there was a little smirk from Camilla Parker Bowles when they put a crown on her head. I'm sure that'll get memed.
Don't blame her.
Yeah.
I'd be buzzing.
Sorry?
I say I don't blame her. Anyway, yeah, I don't want to chat about the bloody.
She looks like an evil stepmother.
Stop mumbling, Adam.
That's all that they're fit for, and mumble.
It doesn't really concern me. The only bit that concerns me is what's the narrative being spun out to the public and why.
The ball.
One more time.
The ball. That's their narrative. That's being spot
What
on.
does Charles de Gaulle have to do with this?
The ball. The ball is the narrative.
Oh.
Yeah, he'll have held one. Like I say, at one point, I've forgotten the name of it. We did do a bit of research on the show once.
Orb and scepter. The
Chat-
orb being.
Hold
now
on a second, Adam.
round.
Shout out to Retro Bill. Good to see you, sir. I haven't seen you in where you been. Haven't seen you at a coon's age. Anyway, he said, backhanded slight of the day. I'd rather be here with you folks than with the finest people on earth. Shout out to the Titanic. Thanks, Retro Bill. Appreciate it. Go ahead, Adam.
It's a backhanded insult. That's an insult. No,
Oh.
nobody picking up on that. The fact that's an insult.
Yes, we know it's an insult.
Oh, okay.
It was prefaced with
damn.
backhanded slight of the day.
Either that or he's calling us the finest people on earth.
You are the finest people on earth. There are no finer. Let that be known.
That's for sure. Okay, all right.
Don't start. But is this what we're doing? I like this. This is quite cool because show 101. If you've ever heard of Room 101,
It's 1984.
yeah. I'll read the quote. Room 101 is from Orwell's 1984. It's a prison chamber used by the Ministry of Love as a last resort to break down those whom they are working. Within Room 101, a prisoner's worst fears are manifested. And I just thought that was quite apt for this show if you're going to cover scientific proof of the creator. Because for all the stuff that's impacted me over the time, that's the most important. Not even flat Earth. The scientific proof of a creator. You heard me ramble about, evolution and biochemistry and that. But that for me is the one that should be in the Ballers Room 101. Because the rest will flow from this. Done.
Thanks, Adam. Is that it?
I didn't mention the Orb and Scepter.
Jeez.
What's the symbology of the orb and scepter?
Oh, brother.
So the scepter's the big stick. That's the monarch's dominion over the land. And then the orb, which is a celestial sphere, now with a cross put on top to Christianize it, but it's not a pre-Christian symbol. And it's to symbolize the realm of God and the heavens and the instruction of the king from that realm. It's my briefest summary.
Thanks for that, Adam. Greenbow, Alabama. Sorry, it's out of context. You don't know what I'm talking about, but she does. Okay, so what's going to happen here? We're going to roll right into the presentation. What's going to happen here is, folks on the panel, if you'd like to get a pen and a piece of paper out, and if anything strikes your fancy that you want to go into, go ahead and jot a little bit down, a little bit in shorthand, because I'm going to run through this whole presentation because I like to get on a roll. You tracking with me? Because we're going to start rolling.
Do not interrupt me.
Now you can if it's a short interruption, you can, but I'm not going to purposely stop for a break. I'm not saying that you can't interrupt when you feel the need. The need for speed. All right, scientific proof. Oh, no, okay, go ahead.
I was going to give you a proper introduction and say, all right, let's do this then. Scientific proof of the creator. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's do it. Scientific proofs of the creator. Of course, this is on my website, globeterminator.com. If somebody would, put that in the chat for me, I'd appreciate that. I got my hands full. As you can see, there's proofs of the creators, one big one, and flat Earth proofs, and you can see all of them right here. The Sextant, Black Swan Flight, Bolivian Salt Flats, Evolved Sea Sparrow Missile Block 1, Coriolis Effect, and No Vacuum of Space. That that'll put some hair on your chest. Or snatch your wig off, either one. But this time we're moving with scientific proofs of the creator, one of my favorite presentations. Put this together some years ago. And like I said, it's one of my favorites. So what I want to do is I want to establish the foundation or the groundwork. And always keep this in mind throughout the entire presentation. Don't forget the foundation of it, because the foundation are the two ontological primitives. Don't ever lose sight of that, okay? It's not a trichotomy. It's not a false dichotomy either, and I'm going to show you. All right, so what we got here is there are only two possible worldviews, that is, ontological primitives that can be held to account for how we, that is, the universe and us, are here. These are the two. Nature or matter, more or less unguided, or intelligent agency, God, that is guided. I'm going to give you an example of this. You see this us part? This us is the life part, so it has a direct connection to the universe. It makes no difference. So we have George Wald, Nobel laureate, medicine and physiology. He's going to tell you. The reasonable view was to believe in spontaneous generation. The only alternative, did you see that? That's a very important statement right there. The only alternative to spontaneous generation, to believe in a single primary act of supernatural creation. There is no third position. Okay? I don't see where all the confusion is with. I've had so many people stumble on this. Not only of the enemy, but of friendlies. They're just not getting this. So I don't know how to break this down any further. I'll try though. Let's break this down. The reasonable view was to believe in spontaneous generation. That's nature unguided. The only alternative, like I stressed above. Number two, a single primary act of supernatural creation. That is God guided. Do you see the two ontological primitives? Yeah. There is no third position. Ergo, it's a true dichotomy. Nature unguided versus God guided. Period.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sure. Yeah, there is this mythical third position, though, and that is that things have always existed, which, of course, doesn't really make a lot of sense with entropy. But
Exactly.
people still stumble upon that idea every now and then in response.
Yes, they're in direct violation of the second law of thermodynamics. That's why there's only two choices. So, there's something really cool about true dichotomies and logic. We're going to get to that in 1 second. If you outright refute or rule out one of those choices, then based on the laws of logic, you ipso facto must believe the other. It's called a disjunctive syllogism. That is a logical argument of the form that if there are only two possibilities, see that? And one of them is ruled out, then the other must be true. Very simple logic. So you have intelligent design, theism, idealism, or natural phenomena. That's atheism, philosophical naturalism, realism. They're all connected by the lips. Therefore, so if you get an atheist running around, they do have a creator. And the atheist creator must be matter or nature. Must be, because you only got two choices, right? We know they're not going to take the other choice. So that's philosophical naturalism or realism. So if your choice is nature, philosophical natural realism, aka atheism, you kind of have some big problems. You see, matter cannot create itself because that would mean it existed prior to its existence. That's logical seppuku. And from Bernard d'Espagnan, particle physicist from 1979, Scientific American. I was a freshman in high school. The doctrine that the world is made up of objects whose existence is independent of human consciousness, i.e., that is mind-independent reality, that's philosophical naturalism, realism, aka atheism, turns out to be in conflict with quantum mechanics and facts established by experiment. Now, folks, when you see this in a citation, I just want to point this out. You see those brackets right there, that bracket right there, and that other one right there. See that? That means I input that. Just to make sure everyone understood the previous statement of what this means. Follow? Whenever you see brackets, that's my addition. Okay? Not parentheses, brackets. That is, matter, light is derivative. The consequent, consciousness, knowledge is primary. That's the necessary antecedent. Game, set, match. So, creation. Let's haul out the big guns. We ain't going with Joe Coffey on the corner. We're going to take their pseudoscientists and use their words against them. Okay? The first one is Alexander Vilenkin, Many Worlds in One, The Search for Other Universes. It is said that an argument is what convinces reasonable men, and a proof is what it takes to convince even an unreasonable man. With the proof now in place, cosmologists can no longer hide behind the possibility of a past eternal universe. Shout out to Harwin. There is no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning. Now, what's he talking about? See, he didn't give the reason why up here, right? He said there is no possibility of a past eternal universe. He just made a conclusionary statement without telling you why. That's all right. We'll get to why here in a second. From Professor Paul Davies, The Big Questions. The universe can't have existed forever. We know there must have been an absolute beginning a finite time ago. Again, he makes a similar comment to Alexander Vilenkin. He didn't tell or expose the reason why. We're going to get to the reason why right now. And we're going to use the late Stephen Hawking. He's going to tell us. This argument about whether or not the universe had a beginning persisted into the 19th and 20th centuries. It was conducted mainly on the basis of theology and philosophy, with little consideration of observational evidence. This may have been reasonable given the notoriously unreliable character of cosmological observations until fairly recently. The cosmologist Sir Arthur Eddington once said, "Don't worry if your theory doesn't agree with the observations, because they are probably wrong. But if your theory disagrees with the second law of thermodynamics, it is bad trouble, baby." In fact, the theory that the universe has existed forever, shout out to Arwin, is in serious difficulty with the second law of thermodynamics. The second law states that disorder always increases with time. Like the argument about human progress, it indicates that there must have been a beginning, period, end of story. And Arthur Eddington actually said this: "If your theory is found to be against the second law of thermodynamics, I can give you no hope. There is nothing for your theory but to collapse in the deepest humiliation. Therefore, everyone must be a creationist or deny the laws of thermodynamics and quantum mechanics. Choose wisely." Now, scientific proofs of the creator. This is going to dovetail with episode 100 of Ballbusters. Episode 100 of Ballbusters was all about information. The next 4 minus 1 are all about, guess what? Information. That is the groundwork. That is fundamental basis of all these arguments besides the third one. Scientific proofs of the creator. Bear in mind, these are not belief propositions. They are knowledge claims. World, wormhole, world, galaxies apart. Belief proposition and knowledge claims. Number 1, information. Information code or software is only ever caused by intelligent agency without exception. That is, whenever we find information existing and trace it back to its source, it invariably leads to an intelligent agent every single time. My support: Library of Congress, all books, all newspapers, all languages, all computer software, the information age. If you cry foul and claim there is no information or code in the genetic code, you're screwed. From Hood and Gallus, the digital code, not only code, digital code of DNA in the most prestigious quote-unquote science journal in the entire world. DNA has two types of digital information. The genes that encode proteins, which are the molecular machines of life, and the gene regulatory networks that specify the behavior of the genes. So, a couple key terms in here, molecular machines of life. Now, if you remember back to the ontological primitives, we talked about nature and intelligent agency. Does nature make molecular machines? You have to ask yourself that question. Has nature the ability, through wind, waves, fairy tale gravity, to construct a machine? Just food for thought. We'll continue. From H.P. Yaki, the King Piper of origin of information theory. The genetic code performs a mapping between the sequences of the 4 nucleotides in messenger RNA to the sequences of the 20 amino acids in a protein. It is highly relevant to the origin of life that the genetic code is constructed to confront and solve the problems of communication and recording by the same principles found both in the genetic information system and in modern communication codes. You see what he did there, right? He didn't juxtapose these. He put these together. Genetic information system and using the same principles in modern computer and communication codes. Who makes modern computer and communication codes? Intelligent agents or waves? That's what I thought. Now to a hostile witness. Dick Dawkins, the blind watchmaker. Yeah, that makes sense. There is enough storage capacity in the DNA of a single lily seed or single salamander sperm to store the Encyclopedia Britannica 60 times over. Some species of the unjustly called primitive amoebas have as much information in their DNA as 1,000 Encyclopedia Britannicas. What the heck is happening here, atheists? How can you... We're going to get to that in a second. I'll leave that go. I have roughly 1.8 million more in support if needed. So, my position, it's the null hypothesis, the default position. Nature or natural phenomena causation cannot create algorithmic cybernetic coding and decoding schemes. That's information. DNA transcription and translation. I'm going to post my flag right there, and prosecution rests. You got lots of work to do, atheists, baltards. Your position, alternative hypothesis. You have to test this to rule out the default. Nature or natural phenomena causation can, you see the difference? Can, that's your position, create algorithmic cybernetic coding and decoding schemes. Again, information, DNA transcription and translation. So, essentially, you must show ink, paper, and glue molecules authoring technical instruction manuals and blueprints. If you don't get that analogy, the ink, paper, and glue molecules are ribose nucleobases and activated phosphates, and the technical instruction manual blueprints equals the DNA software. If not, if you cannot do that, and I mean most Ricky Tick, the null hypothesis, like I said, the default stands. Therefore, a creator. Essentially, code contains information, such as a book, Morse code, DNA, instructions, etc. Information is only created by authors, intelligent agents. DNA is a code. Therefore, DNA has an author. This next small section right here is the coup de grace. And you don't need to understand anything about what I just said previously. You can just come out of the closet with this argument, and it's all over. Pay attention. Question. If you're an atheist, that is a philosophical naturalist or realist, whose quintessential cornerstone belief is that matter or energy is all that there is, then how do you account for the existence of information? Por favor. Just the mere existence of it. When? From Norbert Wiener, professor of mathematics, MIT, 1948. Information is information, neither matter nor energy. Uh-oh. You got a big, big problem. You can't have information existing in your worldview, atheist, but it's everywhere. Huh? Kablooey! It just ends right here, guys. Just this little gem. That's it. It's all over. But where's the fun in that? Quantum mechanics, everyone's favorite. We're talking about information still, right? In genetics, information. In quantum mechanics, it's information. Observe a phenomena. Photons, elementary particles, atoms, or molecules exhibit both wave-like and particle behavior. B, alternative hypothesis. If the which path information is known or can be known, then we will observe. You see the will right there? We will observe wave function collapse, i.e. no interference, that's matter existing. Independent variable, known versus unknown paths. It's in the experimental setup. Dependent variable, matter existing. The null hypothesis. If the which path information is known or can be known, then we will not observe wave function collapse. That is, i.e. interference, no matter. You see the dichotomy here between the alternative and the null. It's always the antithesis of the other. You have to will it in the alternative and will not in the null. Experiment. Which one of the thousands, without exception, of experiments would you like? Go with Zhao Sung Ma. In 2013, quantum erasure with the causally disconnected choice from the proceeding of the National Academy of Sciences. The presence of path information anywhere in the universe is sufficient to prohibit any possibility of interference. It is irrelevant whether a future observer might decide to acquire it. The mere possibility is enough. That means if it's existing somewhere and can be retrieved, you're good to go. Now, that has a flip side, that statement. Therefore, the lack of which path information anywhere in the universe is sufficient enough to prohibit any possibility of wave function collapse, i.e. no formation of matter. Thank you very much, Zhao Sung Ma. I appreciated that. That was a hanging watermelon-sized curveball right there. This statement is true, then therefore this is. Yes, sir. Number 2. Kim in a delayed choice quantum eraser et al. Physical review letters, my namesake. The authors show not only that knowledge of the which path information solely collapses the wave function, but can accurately predict future actions of wave-like and particle behavior after the signal photon has registered and before its twin idler has arrived. That is, quantum mechanical phenomena transcend time and space. That's a biggie for you, Einstein. See also Walborn and Scarcelli. There's about 10 other ones. I just put 2 in there. In conclusion, this experiment unequivocally validates A, knowledge, knowing the which path information alone causes wave function collapse. B, decoherence, which is actually incoherent. Physical interaction with measuring devices does not cause wave function collapse. And C, like I said above, quantum mechanical phenomena transcend time and space. That is, space-time has no meaning in quantum mechanics. Special note, if you didn't catch on to that, C pummels the mytho-mathematical philosopher with a calculator, Einstein, into the incoherent oblivion. All by itself.
Can I ask something?
Yes, sir.
It's kind of weird if it just basically says, yeah, time, space, dimensions have absolutely nothing to do with it. How does it transcend that? Because transcend would be some form of recognition, kind of.
True.
So, is that really the right word to give it?
Yeah, because I have to at least recognize that it comes from incoherent numpties. That existent part.
Right, but it's kind of like saying that, what is it again? I forgot the name. There's this other theory that completely negates gravity, just not part of it. And then to say it transcends it, well, not really. It's just, it doesn't recognize it at all. Basically.
I could probably reword that, but I think this one still stands.
All right, fair enough.
But good point. You're majoring on the minors, but I'm glad I have your attention, though. You're right on point. Good job.
Thanks.
Ergo, matter, our reality, doesn't exist without first the knower of the existence of which path information. That is, matter is derivative, the consequent, consciousness, knowledge is primary, necessary antecedent. Another fatal dagger, non-locality, that is, instantaneous actions at a distance. To overturn the scientific falsification of locality and by direct proxy, philosophical naturalism or realism, that's atheism, whereby invalidating idealism, Christianity, which is not a religion, by the way, and as an ancillary benefit, collect yourself a feather in your cap Nobel Prize, you can take up the Quantum Randy Challenge that was put forth in July of 2012. It's still going, by the way. The Quantum Randy Challenge, henceforth QRC, challenges any pseudoscientist, this is my little addition, you, as it were, who claims that quantum physics is not true and that quantum entanglement experiments can be explained by a classically realistic and locally causal model. A Nobel Prize and $1 million. I haven't checked on the cash prize, might be higher now. I got to go back and check that. But at the time, a Nobel Prize and $1 million is being offered. All you have to do is prove naive realism or local realism is true and not observation dependent. That's all you got to do. Go ahead.
What's naive realism? I know I should just write it down, but as we're in the moment.
Well, what's naive mean?
Not knowing, or I don't know.
Just taking it for granted. Realism, just taking it for granted. No effort involved. Just it's naive.
By the way, I remember what my example was string theory was my example supposed to be.
Strings, it's not a scientific theory. Back to
I
Nathan.
know.
Thank you.
Prove naive realism or local realism. Essentially, local realism is true and not observation dependent. It's not really observation dependent. It's information dependent. So at that time, it was 8+ years at that time. So that was 2012. It's now 2023. You do the math. No, there has been no takers. I wonder why. Alice in Wonderland has more veracity and is more tenable than philosophical naturalism, realism, and aka atheism. Therefore, I always like those therefores. Therefore, a creator. Number 3, this one is not about information. This is the only one that isn't. But it's got teeth. Just simple deductive logic. First law of thermodynamics, that's one lot. The total amount of matter or energy in the universe is constant. That is nature or natural law. See, that's what the first law of thermodynamics is. It's a natural law. Nature or natural law cannot create or destroy matter or energy. They can only change form. Second law of thermodynamics, the amount of energy available for work is running out. The universe is moving inexorably to maximum entropy or heat death, what I call the big chill. So if we take those two statements and take a closer look logically, we can come out with the rest of these statements. If the total amount of matter or energy is constant and the amount of usable energy is decreasing, then the universe will end. The heat death, the big chill of the universe. Ergo, it had a beginning, creation, and not the Big Bang pseudoscience train wreck. So, since the first law states that nature or natural law cannot create or destroy matter or energy, and since the universe had a beginning, second law of thermodynamics, you've seen that above, and since there are only two choices, remember I told you not to forget about that, because it's the foundation of all these sub-arguments. Since there are only two choices, nature versus intelligent design for the how of that beginning, and since matter and nature can't pre-exist before its existence, then poof itself into existence, and before that poof itself from nothing into pre-existence, therefore a creator. See how I got there? That's rhetorical. If you didn't, just pop on the website when you get some time and go through it yourself. Back to information again. The functional sequence specified complexity. This is the last proof. This is up to its neck in information. And slowly becoming, it's not slowly, it's my favorite proof, to be honest with you.
My favourite too. Attention if you're in the audience. This one's the easiest to regurgitate and redigest and understand, if you ask me. I just want to prick the ears of the audience up at this point. I like this one too.
Yeah, it's you know what? It's probably been my favorite since the beginning. Even though I got a biochemistry background, I like this. This has a lot to do with biochemistry too, but I digress. Functional sequence.
No, well, just on that, because I this is the point. I rambled about biochemistry. These bits, it's these bits when 20 odd years ago, you're looking at intelligent design claims. You're looking at specifically this, a functional sequence specified complexity. It's this part. Someone we was chatting in the week, somebody was talking about I think it's 8 or 9 proteins that need to be together to create a turbine to propel the flagellum.
Yes.
Just a simple, just that alone, it was one of the things that made me go, whoa. And that's just the turbine to propel a flagellum.
Turbine.
Why you'd have a turbine or a flagellum before you had the turbine is kind of the consequence of this. But
Did the wind
on that level, when you extrapolate it to a dog, a cat, a you, or a me, it becomes mind blowing the amount of information required.
Yes, sir. I was going to make a play on the turbines and the wind. Do you think the wind took advantage of itself being the wind and wanted to construct turbines for itself?
Well, if you could show me some evidence of that, I might consider it.
Oh, boy. That's a good one. Okay, functional sequence, specified complexity. Hallmarks reveal intent, purpose, planning, choice, interlinked systems, often with contingency. Contrived, without deterministic law-like necessity. This trips up a lot of knuckle draggers because they'll spout out, and I know if you haven't heard it, if you've been out in this genre for any amount of time, you'll come across this word eventually. Complexity. But it's only brushed upon, and no one identifies it or defines it. I'm going to do that for you. There are 3 types of complexity. Number 1, random sequence complexity. Number 2, ordered sequence complexity. And number 3, functional sequence specified complexity. Random is just like how it sounds, like an aftermath of a tornado. It's just all jumbled up. Ordered sequence complexity is just like how it sounds. It has some type of, there isn't another word for it, order. Crystals, snowflakes, sand dunes, and fractals are great examples of this. As opposed to functional sequence specified complexity. Here's an example. It puts the lotion in the basket. Sand castles, the genetic code, barbecue grills, Indy cars, hyper nanotech machines and robots. That's kinesin, ATP synthase, flagellum, shout out to Adam, cilia, ad nauseum, and many others. Ad nauseum. So, random sequence complexity and ordered sequence complexity is a nature construct. Yeah, that's readily recognizable in nature. Whereas functional sequence complexity's only domain is intelligent design constructs. It's the difference between this, which has a little bit of random, mostly ordered sequence complexity, and that. I love this part. I get chills every time I do that. The difference between that and that. Now, any window licker, knuckle dragger, fungus muncher can't get out of it. The difference between that and that. You gotta love it. Let me connect it. The functional sequence specified complexity of a single alleged primitive cell dwarfs that of this sandcastle by exponential magnitudes. We're not in the same galaxy. See the connection? Where'd we get it from? We got it in 1973. Of course, we already knew this, but he put it down into words. Who was that? The king cheese of origin of life research, forever and ever, amen. He's passed away now. Leslie Orgel. If you've been in origin of life research and you haven't seen this name, then you need to stop with the wild turkey and the mushrooms, okay? He's it, essentially. He's the main guy. So in 1973, he had this to say. In brief, living organisms are distinguished by their what? Specified complexity. Thanks, Leslie. Crystals are usually taken as the prototypes of simple, well-specified structures because they consist of a very large number of identical molecules packed together in a uniform way. What does that sound like? Ordered sequence complexity. Lumps of granite or random mixtures of polymers are examples of structures that are complex but not specified. The crystals fail to qualify as living because they lack complexity. The mixtures of polymers fail to qualify because they lack specificity. Love it. Thank you. Again, from the king cheese of information theory, H.P. Yockey. The attempts, feeble I would put in there, to relate the idea of order with biological organization or specificity must be regarded as a play on words that cannot stand careful scrutiny. I would have reworded that. They can't stand superficial Formica deep scrutiny. And look what he said. Look what he's talking about here, folks. You see this order? Yeah, order? He's talking about ordered sequence complexity and conflating it with life. Informational macromolecules, that kills the atheist right there. It's gibberish to them. But I digress. Informational macromolecules can code genetic messages and therefore can carry information because the sequence of bases or residues is affected very little, if at all, by self-organizing physicochemical factors. What he's trying to tell you is with the magnetic board, you know, with the letters on the magnetic board, yeah, the magnetism or the wind or whatever else you dream up, don't arrange them in coherent thought or coherent information or coherent instructions. No amount of nature is going to do anything with that. And where'd you get the letters? Another king cheese. See, these are heavy hitters. I come with heavy hitters, baby. Ilya Prigogine. Second law of thermodynamics. God. They don't even, that Baltards wouldn't even know that, and the atheists don't even know that, but he is. Listen closely to what he says. It's a killer. The point is, oh, by the way, this is 1972. The point is that in a non-isolated open system, that's parentheses, folks, I didn't put that in there, he did. The point is that in a non-isolated open system, there exists a possibility for the formation of what? Ordered. Low entropy structures at sufficiently low temperatures. This ordering, jumping out at you, principle is responsible for the appearance of ordered structures, ordered sequence complexity, remember from above, I digress, of ordered structures such as crystals, as well as the phenomena of phase transitions. Brackets, I put those in here, phase transitions, from water to snowflakes or ice crystals, etc. Unfortunately, I love that word. Therefores and unfortunately, and tills are my favorite words, but I digress. Unfortunately, knuckle draggers, this principle cannot explain the formation of biological structures. Duh. Duh, like I said above. There's differences in complexity.
It's not just complexity. There's a lack of information.
Yes.
Talking about these crystal structures, the reason they're forming crystal structures, they're all the same. The reason they order is the way they're constructed and their electrostatics.
Oh, God.
I'd stop it. No, that's true.
It is true,
That's
but I
why
know
we-
what you're trying to do. I'm going to slap you around a little bit.
Yeah, that's why we've got diamond in that structure, graphite in one structure, just with carbon and so on. That's a consequence of their physicality, this order that occurs, because there's no other way they can get next to each other unless they align up in that certain way. These things are lining up to communicate information when we're talking biological structures. There's a very big difference between two types of order.
The two types, yeah, there's a unfordable chasm, right?
Yeah, totally.
I'm going to say that here in the next statement. You want to finish up? Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, one's random. Even in the case of crystal structures, they don't all look the same because there's a randomness to the way things lock together. There's nothing random about the way a protein, complex protein, or RNA and DNA is put together. It's not put together precisely. The information is lost.
Where's the information at on DNA or RNA?
Well, this is the question.
Can you give me a location? I mean, can you give me some grid coordinates?
No, I can give you nothing Cartesian for where that information is.
Yeah. Good one, Adam. Exactly. So I'm going to round up what Adam just said by saying no amount of random sequence complexity or ordered sequence complexity or any combination thereof, there's only two combinations, will ever lead to functional sequence specified complexity. Ever, ever, ever. That's what Adam was basically trying to say.
Or just to re-give you the analogy that QE gave, no matter how many times the waves lap up on the shore, it's never going to create that sandcastle.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was my analogy.
Yes, sir. Very, very well done. Thank you for adding that.
Were we rebuilding a moat? That was the analogy I remember. Like, you're looking at the reality of just producing like that flagellum from just a single bacterial cell, so something to propel it, or stick like a sperm, yeah, is infinitely more improbable than a wave coming up to that beautiful sandcastle and building. And as the wave washes back, it leaves the sandcastle, rebuilds that, builds a beautiful moat and a lovely ornamental garden out of sand as well. That's more likely.
Exactly. Puts an extra story on it.
Yeah.
Hydrogen fusion reactor.
Here we go. What's up, Brian? You
Hey,
bring
QE, hey, everyone.
you bring triangles, McKeegan with you.
No, I never bring him in here.
We renamed him,
got
Brian. Sorry, Adam, I'm taking your thunder. We didn't do it. Adam renamed him. We wanted to make it run off the tongue a little smoother, so we just calling him Triangles McKeegan.
Yeah, that's fine by me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue with that.
Yeah.
We weren't asking your permission.
right,
I just want to say that well, sorry.
No. I'm going to finish up real quick, man. Then we're going to jump, but this is almost over. So just hold off. So again, no amount of random sequence complexity or ordered sequence complexity or any combination thereof, there's only two, will ever lead to functional sequence complexity. Let me give you an example. I'll take two. Cholecystokinin is a peptide hormone that is a functional protein produced in the mucosal epithelium of the small intestine and stimulates the release of digestive enzymes from the pancreas, vital for digestion and absorption. Without it, you die. Now, Adam, do not come in here and say we make them synthetically. We do. That's not the point. We're taking the human element or the intelligent element out of it. So without it, you die. Without cholecystokinin and its specific function. Now, look at albumin. It is also a functional protein. So they're both functional proteins, but they have very different missions. A functional protein, albumin, is only produced by the liver. It consists of a single polypeptide chain of 580 amino acids. Of its main function is to maintain intravascular, oncotic, colloidal osmotic pressure. It's vital to homeostasis. Without it, you die. They are functionally specific, sequentially complex. You cannot interchange them. They are specifically designed for their specific roles and specific functions.
Just,
If you're
John, before you go on there.
Oh man, I'm almost done.
Well, because they're such amazing points.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, they're Orwellian paradoxes, put simply. Look, we've got albumin. There are lots of big words, those. Intravascular oncotic or colloidal osmotic pressure. Right? That sounds complicated. Reality is albumin is a big component of blood volume. So which comes first? The thing that contains the blood. Yeah. So the blood without the albumin, how does the blood work if it's not doing this thing? Well, the albumin second. Everything is integral. It's a chicken and egg same thing. Same with cholecystokinin. Yeah. How does the thing eat first of all if it's not got the enzyme to break down the products it's ingested to turn into energy to reproduce and evolve?
What?
No, I just did that just to goat you.
Doubt them.
But that's the whole
Doubt
point. There is no evolution. There is no randomness to change. These things are there. They're pre-ascribed.
Right. And even if you take into account the complexities, the actual structural complexity of life design, like how would that even come to assemble to that level? Because it's like too complex to self-assemble. Like you can't compare this to just you let a bunch of minerals crystallize in water or something.
It's not just complex.
It's
No, you missed it. See, you run into the same problem again. You just ran into the wood chipper. It's functionally sequenced specified complexity. That's what it is.
right, but yeah, my point is that it's so egregiously complex, really, compared to anything that we might see out there in nature. That it's just like it's so off the scale. Like that could never. Yeah, or you already emphasized that. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah. Gotcha. I got you. I know
complexity
what
is
you're
one
talking about,
thing.
Arwen. Yes. So,
Complexity is one thing.
well, there you go. I'm almost done.
Well,
Doubt them, you die.
That's what I was there. Without it, you die. So one of my points was, see, they're of the same kind. Functional protein. But they have different functions, right? So you can only categorize. This is prone to equivocation and composition and division fallacies. Just wanted to let you know that, right? You see they're different. You can't say, okay, let's use albumin to do cholecystokinin's job. It's not going to do it. It's not just, and vice versa. It won't do it, even though they're both functional proteins, is the point. So they are functionally specific, sequentially complex. Like I said, you cannot interchange them. They are specifically designed for their specific roles and specific functions. If you're still having a case of the willful stupids, because I know a lot of people have that disease, with complexity, or mindlessly parroting pseudoscience priests, I want you to go and call or email the SETI Institute. That's the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And ask them how they tell the difference between random sequence complexity, ordered sequence complexity, and functional sequence specified complexity. I'll tell you what, in about 10 seconds, they'll friggin' tighten your shot group right quick. Idiots. Information, all of biology, life, the genetic code, replication, transcription, translation, all metabolic pathways, all of physics, that's quantum mechanics. Basically, essentially, all of reality are the quintessential examples of functional sequence specified complexity. Therefore, a creator. The largest escrow closing in the history of universe is at the door, folks. What's your choice? Choose wisely. Questions, comments?
Doubt them, you die.
You like that one.
Right, and how was it ever just maneuvered towards that complexity from a natural vantage point? I mean,
Odd.
the
You're not paying
complexity
attention.
of approach would be, it's impossible. Like,
the complexity. Disagree with me, QE. But the complexity in of itself kind of irrelevant. Put a load of building blocks in a particular order is analogous to the monkey Shakespeare typewriter sort of thing. That's fine. Who understands English so that when the monkeys have typed Shakespeare, it means something? There's no point sticking proteins in order if it doesn't mean anything. Why does it mean something? Why, if I stick this RNA through a biological machine, does it machine out other proteins? Why does it do that? Why is it assembled to do? How does it do that? And where is that information contained for it to do so? Forget the amount of information, how it could or couldn't form. Ultimately, where is it? You asked me for Cartesian coordinates. I can't give them it because I have no idea where that information is processed.
No, not
And
where it's
how-
processed. Where is it?
Yeah, exactly. It's
And
it's
how?
all right
How is it
having
doing that?
rubbing up to a ribosome with an RNA strand. Yeah. Isn't it? It's all right doing that, but what?
You're
This
gonna
is just
shuffle up.
molecules hitting-
Hold on. You're gonna shuffle up to a ribosome. Which part?
Oh, God. We're into. I know.
The
I'll stick with
conceptual
reverse
part.
transcriptase, and I'd have to reference the rest.
Listen to transcriptation.
Okay.
You're gonna lose. Don't go down that road. You're gonna lose, everyone.
Did I tell the joke? Is it an appropriate moment?
Yes.
There's a group of guys and girls standing around discussing the whys and wherefores of life. They come to the conclusion that they don't need any external force, they don't need God, and are so superior that they can create life from nothing. They can do it themselves. God parts the clouds and says, "Hello down there. I hear your conversation. Go on then, let's see you do it." The guys and girls start gathering up some resources. They start scraping up some dirt together, and God goes, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! What are you doing there? Get your own dirt."
Yes, sir. Get your own dirt. Shout out to Betty.
Get your own code in this case. Even if you gave them the dirt, that dirt has been pre-coded to respond to something that I can't give you the Cartesian coordinates to.
Oh, how about get your own consciousness?
Probably the better way.
That's on a different subject. I mean, that's where the origin is for all of this, though. When you say, well, how do we have this functional sequence specified complexity? Well, that's the answer to the ontological primitives at the end of it, isn't it? When you rewind to the beginning of this presentation, and no pun intended, rewind back to the beginning of time, you're talking about the starts of entropy, the starts of the process. Well, as is nicely, concisely put by QE in his excellent presentation, once you rule out one option, it's a true dichotomy. You can only accept the other. And if you're going to adhere to the idea that nature poofed itself into existence, you have to look at the laws of nature. They're what govern nature. So if nature's the cause, and it's going to be causally linked within the parameters that it can operate in. And in this case, the first and second law of thermodynamics precludes that from being the case. The true dichotomy leaves you with only one option. There is a God.
Can I just say that the official claim of us living in an open system, which would be a globe out in a heliocentric space, vacuum space, for me, I think not enough attention is put onto the third law of thermodynamics. As that states, at 0 Kelvin, there will be 0 entropy, right? So how much entropy could there be under those? How much entropy would there be under those conditions? There would be, like, where would you get the temperature to create the convection exchange if you didn't have the gas? Because it wasn't there. You know what I mean? So under that, like, the third law of thermodynamics could be even more impossible than the second law. Well, I don't know if it could be saying more. If what they claim as reality was reality. How could you?
Do
There
you want
wouldn't
the
be.
answer? Do you want the answer mathematically, or was that rhetorical?
No, I'm just stating. It's just, you could say join in. Why not?
Their answer to that is mathematically to divide by 0.
No, because you see, that's destroyed by the first law. The second law destroys their claims that we can have an open system to a vacuum. And the third law completely annihilates them because we wouldn't have the temperatures necessary for the exchanges, because we wouldn't have the things we need to have those temperatures. Convective exchange would be... How much convective exchange would there be without gas?
You have an unnatural affinity towards temperature, man.
I do.
Yes, you do. Hold on. Shout out to Chris. Fight the good fight. Chatoris. Funky Tees, coolest t-shirts on the streets. Thanks for Super Chat. And Retro Bill again. Thank you, sir. Nearly all Christian debaters argue philosophically using standard Big Bang cosmology. You're correct. They should watch this video. Yes, they should. Thank you very much, Retro Bill. Appreciate it. Go on, Brian, with your unnatural affinity for temperature.
Well, what I would say is, going off the last Super Chat, there's a lot of Christians out there who are less Christian than me, and I'm not even a Christian. Says a lot, doesn't
it? Yeah, because you're hotter.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hotter. Yeah, no, my point on the third law was that people normally never address it because they never need to get that far. Because what you need for the entropy of the gases would be the gases to create the temperature to have the convective exchange, which you won't have. You'll have probably a certain amount of radiative and conductive if there's nothing to touch anything, but you won't have convective. It can't. There won't be any gases due to the second law.
Yeah, the second and third law have a lot of intricacies. They're related in many ways. Go ahead, Nathan. What were you saying?
No, that was it.
Oh, that was it?
No, add to Brian's. You believe in the first law and the second, and what you're proposing, 0K, is never possible.
Because, well, yeah, it violates the second law.
Yeah, it's never achievable. At best, it's a theoretical atom destroyer. To take all of the energy out of an atom would surely mean it would collapse. Because ultimately, that's what I assume is holding it together. So it seems just a theoretical proposition, which is why I laugh so much, Brian, when they talk about gravity being the containment, these gas particles to go up, you have their kinetic energy opposed by the force of gravity to a kind of ballistic arc in terms of their trajectory, where at the peak of the arc, fundamentally, they'd have to be at 0K individual, because otherwise that's the only reason they've stopped going in that direction. It's a theoretical nonsense. But fundamental...
Yeah, 0K is impossible.
Atmosphere.
Yeah, 0K is impossible.
Yeah, but you're right, there's your third law of violation right there. Because although we didn't tie this down to an actual heliocentric rhetoric claim that we could, put a page marker on, they give us their demonstrations of gas going up, losing all kinetic energy, and then coming back down with a force that isn't a force. At that point, then you'd have to have a constant value. At that one point, they just describe it as the top of an arc. Well, no, that's where your constant would be, wouldn't it? That's where your third law comes in.
That loses all kinetic energy is called a liquid. Do you know what I mean? So as long as there's gas there, then it hasn't lost its kinetic energy. And a vacuum...
It's going to have a reintroduction of it, is what I'm saying. So it's not going to reach a constant value. So when it reaches the top of their arc in their description, it should be at a complete standstill, right? It should have a constant value. It doesn't. They're saying it increases in kinetic energy as it comes back down, go boom, boom.
Well, what they're saying is, let me ask you this then, Nathan. How much, or anyone there, what is the temperature of a vacuum?
That's a malformed question.
But see, it is and it's not, because what temperature can take place in a vacuum besides radiative? Maybe conductive, but when it comes to gases, what temperature? Like there won't be gases in a vacuum. That's the point. The point I'm making is
It doesn't transfer. That's why your coffee stays warm in a flask.
yeah. But the point I'm making is that when the valve is open in that demonstration, that old black and white demonstration, and the bromine fills the vacuum, fills the chamber, nothing will stop gas from filling the available lower pressure volume. Nothing will stop it from doing that. That is just like that is its natural behavior. So there's no way for that to stop. Like whatever claims they make about anything they want to make up cannot stop that. So their claim has to be implausible, if not completely impossible, because it can't be stopped.
Okay, let me ruin this by a super chat. Theo Megawordy, how many? This is going to shock you. How many curvilinear radii does information have? Shout out to Theo. Thanks for the super chat, guy.
This description, Adam, is actually at the top of the arc, at the point of absolute zero, is a first, second, and third law violation. That description that they give.
Well, I've been pondering this. First law, and in terms of creation, the point of leaving the surface of the ball is losing energy. Now, in other forms of mechanics, there's always a transfer of energy. There's nothing here other than a geodesic in space-time that it's traveling along. Yeah, this is their claim to have it's got to be losing energy to affect its kinetic energy, yeah, as opposed to its velocity. So even the first bit is a violation in that sense, because the mass that's supposedly draining it of energy isn't storing energy up. It doesn't have excess energy all of a sudden because it sucked it from, you know what I mean? Like when we're talking about temperature, there's a transfer.
Gotcha. So if you're saying that there's let's call it a resistance to the upward acceleration, and we'll keep it simple. We'll just say that the gas is released from the ground and has a directly up vector. Okay. Well, in that scenario, there's claimed to be a resistance to that energy that's going up to slow it down. Well, the first law would say that it's going to be transferred to the thing that's slowing it down. That bastardized idea and description has come from a later to be described as it was by Adam a moment ago as a bent geodesic vector, I suppose, along space-time, but with the simultaneous notion that it's having the mass of Earth pulling the gas back down, go boom, boom, to make it eventually reach the top of the arc, the Kármán line, of a cake, realise it wants to violate the first law of thermodynamics again, and then increase its energy. Again, where's the energy coming from or going to in terms of an adherence to the first law? Well, Adam's right. There's a violation on the way up and on the way down. Now, we don't need to rehash the second law of thermodynamics violation. It's the thing we focus on most. But back over to Brian, we've then got a third law of thermodynamics violation, because we should have some consistency at the point that it reaches absolute zero. If you like, the entropy's run out, if you like. Well, you're going to have a nice consistent system at that point. What's that? It comes back down? What? No, that's not what is being adhered to in terms of natural law at that point. So we've got gas go up and then come back down, go boom, boom, because it's solid bonded bouncy balls, right? Gas must go, what goes up in gas must come down. Yeah, that notion is a first, second, and third law of thermodynamics violation. Isn't that great?
The point of Apex, the top of the roller coaster of its ballistic ride, fundamentally is a theoretical place that the universe cannot allow. Also,
it's the point of the Great Freeze. I can't remember. Is it? I think you covered this also in your presentation, in regards to Hawking's. Is it him that came up with the idea of the brief history of time with the Great Freeze, and all the entropy runs out?
No, it's not his particular. It's not his particular idea. It's just a logical conclusion with entropy.
It's in his book, so he's
Einstein was talking about it way before Hawking. Sorry.
Fair enough. It's not relevant. And my point is that description of entropy running out is described as the Great Freeze. Well, according to the descriptions we are given, but from the anti-flat Earth rhetoric, not from the actual geodesic bent space-time rhetoric, it's that gas goes up and comes back down again. You know, you're going to look Thunderfoot, who pours bouncy balls into a fish tank. It's asserting that you've got a first, second, and third law of thermodynamics violation simultaneously occurring. It's great.
That's the best example of what the ball's claiming. When that bouncy ball hits the bottom, its last collision is that, and then it goes up. Yeah? And it's only got so much energy to propel it, and it runs out of that propellant energy. Yeah? It can only keep going it so far. And when it's run out of that propellant energy, it stops. It does reach a 0 point. There's no more upward lift. It's all been used up. Then there's nothing to support it, so it comes back down. That's lovely for a bouncy ball. It's not gas behaviour. It's not what they're doing. It's not analogous. It's not analogous to gas behaviour, but it is analogous to their claim of how gravity drains kinetic energy of gas molecules.
Right. And if it's not a force, it's certainly not going to be the contrapositive when you're transferring energy, as per the first law of thermodynamics. Especially when you describe elastic collisions, when you're describing equivalence with a bouncy ball hitting the ground. No, if a gas particle hits the ground, it's not transferring energy to the ground, is it?
Well, how would gas cycles happen within the heliocentric model? Now, I'm not even talking about the fact that they have an open system. Not just that. It's a gas cycle would have to involve some kind of intelligent agency. What is the point of a gas cycle? Do you know what I mean? What is the point of the hydrological cycle? What's the point of these things? They are purposeful. They're not like random. Even them are not random. So I don't see how gas cycles would ever occur within their claims. There'd be no reason for them. No matter what from an imagination point of view you could come up with for within their paradigm, you couldn't come up with a gas cycle. Why is there not a daily oxygen, 24/7 oxygen and nitrogen cycle? Why is there that? That feeds the earth. Why is there that? Why does those cycles exist? That is not random.
No. Well, you've got to answer the question, although it's not exactly functional sequence specified complexity, you've still got to rewind the arrow of time to get to your answer, haven't you? In other words, you're still doing the same thing, which is reversing the processes of entropy to get to a beginning point and say, how did this all begin? In other words, your answer results in the question of the ontological primitives. And then you've got a true dichotomy. You can't have nature creating itself for all of the reasons that we've just been discussing. So although Brian's question doesn't necessarily lead to, well, there must be a God because we've got a hydrological cycle. By the same token, when you ask, why is that cycle in effect, you go back to a reversal of the arrow of time, aka entropy, and you end up at the ontological primitives.
I disagree there.
Oh, okay.
It does. There's a hydrological cycle. There's ways in which these molecules work together. There's I want to call it a Goldilocks thing, in which we've got so much water, so much nitrogen, so much things that make these things work. Yeah, this is constructed. Yeah, just like you think of the cell. Look, even in their paradigm, how they won't profess there's another planet with life on it. They like I said, I use that phrase, that Goldilocks thing, where the right consistency of everything, just like me and you are, protein-wise, their ball Earth is the right consistency of everything at the right distance in the right place with the right size star. To allow this to happen with the right atmosphere, the right mixture of water, the life-giving element. All these things are specified complexity of creation.
I see. So, taken as a whole, you would say that I see what you're talking now. What you're essentially alluding to is that it is identical at both the macro and micro scales, right? If you look at it as a great big picture, you're talking about a complex system with lots of different intricate parts, some living, must be in effect in order for that cycle to continue. Therefore, that is functional sequence. specified complexity, is it not? It's just on a much bigger scale. Earth rather than a cell.
The big scale, but then also the macro scale, the molecular scale. It has to be an encoding, a level of coding that makes oxygen, oxygen, nitrogen, nitrogen, all these things. Why, when you stick oxygen and hydrogen together, it functions in such a way. Why it then acts like a universal solvent for gases or the liquids, creates the ability to have a density of atmosphere that wouldn't be able to happen without water. All of these things happen. The water. This is, again, programming. The way in which water interacts with its strange molecular bonds. Yeah, this is pre-designed and orientated so that the molecules work in specific ways. We talked about genetic coding. To build the genetic coding, you've got to have the molecular coding. How will these things lock together? How will this different Lego brick fit with this Lego brick? How will they change? What will that difference that make? All that encoding is there at the atomic level. A little bit preachy.
Yeah, if you send up a high altitude weather balloon, helium balloon, right? You fill it with helium, send it up. Eventually, let's just say your average one, an ordinary everyday person like Dwayne Kellum or Mr. Sensible or whoever would send up. Eventually, it gets to about 24, 27 miles, whatever it is, the average one, and they explode. Right? Why do they explode? Because the pressures are so low that the higher pressure inside helium, right, wants to expand so much to try and naturally fill. We're back to this, not able to give an explanation of cause for this outside of God, that the helium is expanding the balloon so much because it wants to fill the available outside lower pressure volume. Right? Because of that natural effect, right, it busts the balloon and the balloon comes back down. The helium does not. We don't know where the helium goes. We just know that it wants to expand out in all directions. And that's why the balloon breaks, because there isn't enough resistance outside of it, enough pressure outside of the balloon to stop the internal pressure wanting to do that. Now, if we look at temperatures, because I did a thing on it a couple of years ago, back in 2019 or something, about what creates our gas pressure gradient. I went through the whole thing with the sun, how the nitrogen cycle works with the earth, oxygen cycle, blah, blah, blah. But the thing about it is that the lowest temperatures we have are at 10 miles up. That is the lowest that is actually measured and recorded, right? Then things start to warm up again. Now, I postulated that was radiative heat off of a solid container. That's what I postulated, right? But the point is that I'm making is that helium balloon, right, weather balloon, whatever, goes past that point and goes up into lower pressure volumes where there is other gases after going past that point. And it wants to expand, it busts the balloon open and it expands. So the point is that the lowest temperature that can actually be measured in reality is at 10 miles up. And gases get past that. Now, there's a reason why most of the gases don't, and that's because of gas cycles. That they try and say 70 to 75%, but it's not. It's more like 80 to 85% of all gases are below cloud level. Below the cloud level, that is where your gases are. Right? So, but even at that, whatever gases do get past that and get up to 10 miles up, right, then they have let's say there's another 20, 30 miles above that they can have to fill. Right, so you're going to have low pressures, but they still get past that temperature. So the stupid claim from the ballers that gas runs out of kinetic energy and then gravity pulls it back down, this is absolute rubbish. Like, that's a pathetic claim, because they have to replace the temperature with the G. They have to replace, just like they have to replace perspective with to claim our curve, they have to replace temperature to claim gravity.
Gotcha. You've been saying this for a while, and it's never really clicked until now. When you say PV equals nRG, right, that's what you mean, isn't it? You're saying that after this point, it stops being about the temperature anymore, and they've substituted out this T, G.
Yeah, because they can't have T, because they have to claim that G is the controlling factor for the gas pressure gradient. They can't have cycles and other things, and they certainly can't have T. T can't be part of it, which is why they need to. They start, like, you look at all of their claims involving actual measured temperatures and pressures, and it only goes up to about 30, 36 miles. They have nothing as far as a measurement goes after that. Everything after that is NASA sounding rockets, which go out into heliocentric space. Sorry.
I expand on your PV equals NRG analogy, because Nathan, I think, is just finally the penny's fully dropping. The formula PV equals nRT, so you got pressure times the volume, describing how much energy is in this system, and the other side of the equation, is the amount of substance, the ideal gas constant, which is kind of a energy equivocator, and then the temperature, that kind of expression, and this is the relationship we have, PV equals nRT. Now, when I was talking earlier, talking about energy of these gases, and this is what they're trying to substitute. Now, temperature is an expression of all that, and that's fundamentally what they're doing in the equation, is to try and substitute the gas behavior equation, which is based on kinetic energy, for this G. And that's why it makes me laugh, PV equals nRG, because that's fundamentally what they're doing. Temperature is energy, if we think of it simply, and the way they're trying to negate is G. Up it goes, taking away the energy, taking away, and now it's at 0 Kelvin, misnomer, and down it's falling, gaining back that kinetic energy. PV equals nRG. Absolute brilliant, Brian.
Well, thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. But even if you look further into what they're actually claiming, there can't be any kinetic energy, because their reasons for gases going up is because other gases are being pulled down by G, a force of G, causing the buoyancy of gases going up. That's their claim. It's a weight issue. That gases have weight, they're a mass, right, within their paradigm. I know what's mass. And that it's a weight issue, and it's buoyancy that's created by a force of G that's causing all this. So they can't turn around then. It's like them turning around and telling you, well, there is a certain amount of perspective in the Earth curve. It's like, no, there isn't. There is either Earth curve or perspective. There is either G, there is either G, or there is T, gravity or temperature. You can't start telling me about kinetic energy of gases and also claim G. You can't do that. You have to either claim one or the other, because one is a replacement of the other within their paradigm. That's kind of my whole point.
Keep labouring it, Brian, because it obviously takes at least 10 occasions for it to start sinking in, because you've covered that on at least 10 occasions before the penalties finally drop from me. So keep it up. Job. I
will. I don't help matters, because I complicate things when I start telling people about the 5 gravities. But there is 5 gravities, right? There actually is 5 gravities. Technically, there is 5 gravities. But it doesn't matter. But I will keep on. But that particular gravity there has to always be a force of attraction between masses. It can't be anything other than that. It can only be a force of attraction between masses within their claim. They can't claim space-time, Einsteinian, or quantum gravity, anything like that. They can't commit to any of that. It has to be what they claim as a Newtonian, which is not attraction.
Right. I just want a mild disclaimer. I do want to point out that PV equals nRG is not mathematically correct, or even claim. It's the most intellectual parody of what they're claiming, and that's why I think it's brilliant. It is a meme, an equation meme of what they're claiming. You get me? It's exactly what they're trying to substitute. What we've been describing in terms of ballistic arcs of gas molecules. That is the mathematical meme of what they're claiming. It's I like it.
Yeah, because it shows how ridiculous their claims are, doesn't it? I mean, that's why I also labour the point, and I know it annoys people and it bores people, but I always labour the point that objects within their paradigm and what they're claiming concerning their PV equals nRG means that objects must weigh less in a vacuum. And they don't, they weigh more. And that's why it's like a complementary point to that. It's like, there's the ridiculousness this would be the outcome of it, but the outcome is the opposite of what their ridiculous claim is. The outcome is what we would expect would happen if there wasn't a G but a T.
Yeah, excellent stuff. That's why I like this subject. I've said it many times before, but flat Earth is an evergreen subject because there's every aspect that you look at ultimately will lead to the conclusion that either the Earth's not a sphere, or the Earth is demonstrably flat, or there's a God. All roads lead to those conclusions in all instances. And plenty of subject material to cover. It's just you don't yet know, or we don't yet know, where one particular road that we'll start looking at will lead us. Now, who'd have thought that things like BPS 5 years ago would be us barking at globe believers that that's a flat Earth system? You just don't know what road is going to lead to flat Earth, and they all do. Everything's open to discussion and to discovery, and that's all we'll be doing from now and probably till the day we die, if it's still a globe paradigm when we do. But there we go. For me, it means evergreen subject. Wonderful. The only downside to that evergreen subject is the evergreen nature of it means that people will always be searching for it and finding our opponents. Other than that, it's great.
Yeah, the only issue we have is other people who are flat earthers poisoning the well with stupid ideas. I've heard one only in recent days speaking, saying the most stupidest stuff on a live show. You know, it's just, you know, that is the problem we have. We have flat earthers who are turning up in the subject, who are thinking they're finding new wisdoms, or not thinking things out, and going along with stupid claims without giving a thought, and confidently saying things publicly, things that any of us would pull apart. Any of us here would pull apart.
Okay,
You know,
Explain what, Brian?
can
Come
you be
on.
more specific?
Yeah.
yeah,
He's just talking about
yeah.
a discipline issue. He's talking about the fact that we experience that as a humanity, as a people, we do that. And, you know, through experience, you realise that if you don't know something, you should keep your mouth shut. You only learn that publicly. And you're doing it and you're being shamed. You know, meters versus kilometers or whatever it is mathematically I made a misspeak with. People want to focus on that. And you go, okay, so if someone's going to major on the minors when it comes to a misspeak or a mathematical foible, you know that you've got to be very careful in what you say publicly. Now, as we talked about Dave McKeegan at the beginning of the show, he's no different to these flat earthers that Brian's currently describing. In other words, they get hold of some subject matter that they think they're suddenly an expert in because they're enlightened. And before you know it, they're putting their foot in it left, right, and centre. That's a humanity thing as opposed to a flat earther thing, in my opinion. But we know better because we've been here a long time and we've run the gauntlet, haven't we, Brian? Let's be honest. We know better.
Yeah, we do. And I can listen to Globers all day long and they won't bother me. But I can't listen to other flat earthers because I straight away start shouting at the phone nearly. I have to stop myself from doing it. I have to turn off shows when I hear other flat earthers talking when they're blurting out rubbish. Because I was asked for it, to give some context, I listened back to one of Bev's shows during the week and there was a guy came on who was only new with. Yeah, just I
You did
listened
it
to
for yourself, dude.
Hang on, I'm not finished. 1 second. There was a guy came on. I can't remember the guy's. Could have been Tom. His name was. I'm not sure. But he was only a few months into it, or he's only recently into it, and he said a lot of stuff that was completely wrong to do with the nature of Earth and the way he was describing it, and saying you can't describe it flat, and just not understanding that flat is a description. But that wasn't like the thing. I don't need to go into all the other stuff he said that was wrong. I just need to tell you one thing. He said, quantum mechanics has nothing. There's no backing for quantum mechanics. It's just all mathematics. That showed you just how much research and understanding he had on the subject. And he tells people this kind of stuff publicly, supposedly. Like, you know he's talking about quantum field theory, don't you? And things like that, not quantum mechanics.
Ryan, the future is not statistics. I know QE loves statistics, right?
Yes, I do. They're the closest thing to my heart.
I know. He told me off in the week. That was the worst point of the shows this week when we got onto the analysing that YouGov data, Nathan. Statistically, you're screwed, mate. if we look at what's happened so far, and we refer to the Feast of Nonsense, it was a very small amount of people that produced a very large feast. As the awakening occurs and more people realize it's not a ball and grasp something to cling on to, there's going to be more and more of this frustration and reprisal at these people. It is going to become futile. Just about repeating this message, I think, rather than necessarily having to deal with every moronic claim that's going to come out. And hopefully there is, I say statistically, hopefully we're influxed. Ice walls, you know what I mean? All this kind of stuff, rock walls, whatever. I don't really care. If we're influxed with this sort of stuff from newbies, it means the message is disseminating, which is kind of what that anti-flat earther proved this week. These stats from 2018. Shout out wherever it was, Nathan.
Don't understand your point. What's your point, Adam? We're going to be overwhelmed with Feast of Nonsense. More people find out about flat Earth.
Statistically, there's going to be multiple spurious explanations now. If you think of the number of explanations we had in the Feast of Nonsense with very small community, if I can use that word, stick a couple of zeros on the end, which is what we're looking at numbers wise, maybe more, then you expect a lot more at the feast. A lot more sausages or cheese and pineapples, because you're going to have to get that, because there's going to be a lot more people filling their own void. And
is that a good thing? What I'm not clear about is, by the way, I've got in about 10 minutes we're going to be ending, so I've got to return some videotapes. Anyway, but are you saying it's a good thing?
I'm saying statistically it's a good thing. If you've got more of that to deal with, more nonsensical hypotheses of what the world is, then that's indicative that there's more and more people falling into the realm and trying to grasp a bit of reality. It takes time to get to this stage where, as you say, I'm happy looking out in wonderment and being happy with that. That's not what people instantly think.
Comparison, then. If
Mark
saying...
Sargent being the example, fill that void with a...
hold on a second. Numbrius, Adam. Yeah, I like that. Shout out to Dave Scott. But I digress. Gets me every time. I so appreciate your sense of humor, Kiwi. Many thanks. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate the super chat. Go ahead, Nathan.
I was going to say, I'm just trying to think of something to parallel with it that's not paradigm shifting. So, in the case of audio or audiophile equipment, when I was working in it many years ago, there was lots of nonsense that was disseminated by dealers, me included, just to get stuff to sell, right? Now, then you get YouTube, and you get a lot of idiots talking nonsense about audiophile equipment and giving it descriptions instead of measurements. For example, now, because of YouTube, that means that by your standard, audio equipment is becoming more popular, even though the standard of which it's becoming more popular with is the nonsensical gibberish and stupid assertions in an unregulated industry that's full of bullshit. No. That doesn't alter the fact that the amount of bullshit in that industry means there's more people talking about it. Is that what you're saying? By comparison?
No, not exactly. If we'll stick with the audio analogy and pretend that you can have YouTube or you can have audio after YouTube. So we've got YouTube and that's our u.gov barometer. Yeah. So we're looking at that and suddenly, right, when you're talking about, I've got these speakers with my this new thing called audio that's coming out all the time, but I've got interference, right? And as you might say, just invest in a good cable. I find out the truth. But what you've actually got is people saying, no, what you want to do is put a magnet halfway there. All the things you talk about, that people in the audio feast of nonsense of how you can correct your audio, because they've just discovered audio. And they want the exact best, perfect audio so they can settle down with their audio and be happy knowing that
we're making the same analogy. So what I'm saying is, when I was in a dealership, there was plenty of hi-fi voodoo, little rocks that you put on top of your speakers that made them sound better. Yeah. Well, with YouTube, there's now more people talking about putting little rocks on top of your speakers to make them sound better, that means that there's more people talking about it, full stop.
Yes. Yes. So
I think
statistically, the more bullshit Brian has to be infuriated by means the bigger and the more nonsensical different stories means statistically the bigger the outreach for people that are waking up to flat earth who are struggling will invent stuff to just be happy mentally and say, yeah, I've got an ice wall or I've got this.
Which is more frustrating, Brian. Fighting against a presupposed paradigm that is automatically accepted as true and therefore allowed to be begged the question of, versus east of nonsense being prevalent in terms of what we had to address. Which is more frustrating for you?
for me, it's the second, it's the latter, because and it's because of what Adam said, and I know that is right, and it's been in my mind for a while, that these people on our own, that are supposed to be on our own side, are multiplying and multiplying and multiplying, and we'll have all these people on our own side making all these stupid claims that they don't even understand, because they haven't researched, they haven't even logically come to any conclusion that you could call coherent. And they're out there confidently telling the public, right, what the world is and what this and that is. And, well, you can't call it flat. Look, someone saying that means you have never actually researched, right, what the term flat is, what its purpose is, and the point of it and what it means. That means you think flat is a geometric claim. You know what I mean? It's like stuff like that. This guy saying that quantum mechanics is the biggest heap of nothing, it's all maths. That tells you how much research this guy has put into anything. You know, when quantum mechanics is the most supported by scientific method branch of science ever. But because...
When it comes to that, Brian, I just have to point people towards their own computer or towards semiconductors. And it's always the way with anything that's scientifically valid. People don't appreciate the science of it. And when you say quantum mechanics, that is the science. They appreciate the technological advancements that come their way as a result of the science. So the easiest way to do it is just point them in the direction of something that's useful to them as a result of the science.
Or
Sorry,
you,
Brian,
or you could laugh.
Or you could laugh, but you know, Brian's frustration is born out of his empathy, though, isn't it? You know, he wants to. He's frustrated because I assume I'm speaking for you, Brian, that you think they should know better, right?
Oh, Brian's finished. Brian's finished, man, because it's like Adam said, it's just going to get worse. Brian, you might as well just, you know, get a room at Shady Meadows because you're through.
Yeah, back my bag.
Just accept it all. It's just easier that way. Just accept it. Ice walls, ether. Just accept it. Just give in to it.
No, but you did the same, Nathan. And we're doing these review things, and it was a very short shrift that we dealt with people like Lieu here for triangles, for example. You got very bored of that very quick because that's not where our energy should be spent. And with Brian, it shouldn't be arguing with numpty newbies that you've got the wrong grasp of this. They've come on in. I'm not going to correct you. Just keep learning. Yeah. And we're the same. We've got no interest now at this point. We've realised we're banging our head against the wall with people like triangles and Red's rhetoric, etc. We've got to go for the NDTs and these multi-million subscriber people that are, and this is that are commenting on Flat Earth, even though their channel's got nothing to do with it. It's a point of interest to them. This is where we've realised our energies are worth going. And I'd say the same to Bry. QE said you could just laugh at him. This is probably the best thing.
Take us home, Nathan.
Yeah.
No. Take us home, Nathan.
I'll return some videotapes, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen. With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who've tuned in live, smashed the super chat, hit QE's PayPal link, and all that good stuff. Obviously, a massive thank you to today's Ballbusters panel for making today's live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley. A massive thank you to QE himself, and we will see you all in the next Ballbusters.